Have you ever stopped to think about how you split up your savings? A little bit in cash, maybe a little in investments. It seems so obvious today, but this simple choice was actually at the heart of a huge economic debate. So today, we're going to dive into the clashing ideas of Keynes and Tobin to really understand the thinking behind how we all manage our money.
So let me just ask you this. When it comes to your own wealth, do you put everything, 100% into safe cash? Or do you go all in on riskier things like bonds? Is it really an all or nothing game? Well, believe it or not, for a long time, one of the biggest names in economics thought so.
So let's start with that first perspective. It's foundational, for sure, but as we're about to see, maybe a little bit flawed. The famous economist John Maynard Keynes, he had a pretty simple theory. He figured people make a completely binary choice. If you think interest rates are going to go up, which should make your bonds lose value, you hold cash. Simple. But if you think rates are going to fall and your bonds will be worth more, you go all in on bonds. In his world, it's one or the other. Period. And this quote just nails that core assumption. There's really no middle ground in his model. You're either a speculator trying to outsmart the market, or you're just sitting on the sidelines holding cash. It's a very, very black and white way of looking at our financial lives. Just think about it for a second. Think about your own savings or your parents' retirement accounts. Does anyone really put 100% of their life savings into a checking account or dump it all into a single type of bond? It just doesn't sound right, does it? And this is exactly where our story gets a new hero. And that brings us to our second perspective. So enter James Tobin, an American economist who looked at what Keynes was saying and basically thought, hang on a second, there's got to be a more realistic way to think about this. So Tobin comes along and introduces a concept that is, and I'm not exaggerating, the absolute bedrock of all modern finance, the portfolio. See, it's not about choosing just one asset. It's about creating a mix, a collection of different things. And the really crucial part is that you hold them all at the same time. He basically argued that rational people, you and me, we don't act like gamblers at a casino, putting everything on red or black. No way. Instead, we diversify. We build a portfolio that has both safe stuff, like money, and risky stuff, like bonds, to try and balance things out. That just sounds a lot more like real life, right? So why do we do this? Why do we diversify instead of just picking one? Well, Tobin's whole theory really hinges on this one beautiful, simple concept, the trade-off between risk and reward. All right, let's break down what's in your portfolio. First up, you've got money. Cash. What's its financial return? Zero. It doesn't earn you a thing just sitting there. But what's the risk? Also zero. It's perfectly safe. Can't go wrong. Now, let's look at option number 2, bonds. They offer a positive return. You get interest payments. That's the reward. But they also come with risk. Interest rates can change, which means the price of your bond can go up or down. It's not a sure thing. And that right there is Tobin's big aha moment. The real decision isn't a simple yes or no on investing. It's a calculation. It's about figuring out how much risk you are personally willing to stomach to chase a certain level of reward. You're not just a speculator anymore, you're a risk manager. Okay, so we've got Keynes's all-or-nothing speculator on one side and Tobin's risk-managing diversifier on the other. Let's put them head-to-head. When you boil it all down, this is the core difference. Keynes is asking, which one should I hold? But Tobin completely reframes the question. He asks, what's the right mix? How much of each should I have in my portfolio? It's a totally different way of looking at the exact same problem. And this table breaks it down even more. Look at investor behavior. Keynes has either or. Tobin has hold both. Now look at the role of risk. For Keynes, risk is kind of just implied. It's part of the speculation game. For Tobin, it is the central variable. It's what drives the whole decision. Diversification? Keynes doesn't even consider it. For Tobin, it's the main event. But the most explosive difference is right there at the bottom, the liquidity trap. Now, you might be thinking this is just some academic squabble, but it's not. This shift in thinking has massive real-world consequences for how governments and central banks try to manage the entire economy. So Keynes had this big fear, something he called a liquidity trap. It's a scenario where interest rates get so low that everyone just decides to hoard cash, making a central bank's policies totally useless. Well, Tobin's model suggests this whole scary idea might just be a myth. And here's why. According to Tobin, we're all risk-return calculators, remember? So even a tiny, tiny positive return on a bond is more tempting than the guaranteed zero you get from cash. People won't hoard all their money. There will almost always be some incentive to invest, no matter how small. And what that means is that central banks don't lose all their power. They can still influence the economy, even when interest rates are scraping rock bottom. So what does all this boil down to? It's actually a really powerful idea. Whether you realize it or not, every time you decide how much to keep in your savings account versus how much to put in a 401k or some other investment, you are acting as a portfolio manager. You're constantly weighing risk and return, just like Tobin described.
So the next time you look at your own finances, think about it through this lens. What does your portfolio, your personal mix, say about your trade-off between risk and reward? You're not just saving money. You're actually applying a Nobel-worthy economic theory to your own life. Pretty cool, huh?